directora ejecutiva de la colaborativa en esta bella ciudad de Chelsea. He estado aquí por más de 32 años haciendo este trabajo comunitario y me enorgullece tener a nuestro amigo el alcalde Marty Walsh. Él, cuando no era alcalde, compartíamos líneas de piquete organizando carpinteros o edificios en diferentes proyectos que hemos trabajado juntos. Una vez más, my name is Gladys Vega. I am the Executive Director of the Chelsea Collaborative. I am honored to be here with all of you in this early in the morning. Sorry that I made you guys come so early. But I am privileged to have my friend, el alcalde, Mayor Marty Walsh. We been forever, before you were the mayor, in sort of like the work that we need to do in terms of union organizing and all the support that we have in helping our brothers in the Carpenters Union, the building trade, etc. But most important, we're here because Chelsea is facing a housing crisis as everyone else in the state of Massachusetts, especially communities of color. And every time that we have a growth in the population, our families continue to be displaced. There's families here that I have found coming here with their bags because they have no place to live. And they came with luggage here because they had nowhere to live. They were in an apartment for 3 months. The landlord found out they were there. They were displaced, and they have to move. And the city basically said, go to the collaborative. They can maybe help you out. And then that happens to us probably 3 times a week, 2 times a week. We don't have a shelter. We just pasen, no se preocupen. So anyway, so we don't have a shelter, and we need to be innovative in creating housing, and housing that it brings both tax revenue that is sustainable, but also that it doesn't displace the community members that have built Chelsea. As you know, Chelsea was a place that nobody wanted to live in. We had a Chelsea that had no relationship with the police or anything like that. Little by little, the Chelsea Collaborative worked very hard to build that. And now we are a trusted community that everyone wants to move in, and we're very happy about the newcomers, but we also don't want to displace the people that were sweeping the streets 30 years ago and taking pride while our different scandals, because Chelsea, we went to state receivership, we went through different things, but the Chelsea residents, built Chelsea, and now they're not able to stay here because they are not able to afford it. So yo le pedí al alcalde, a nuestro alcalde, que viniera y nos diera más o menos ideas de qué es lo que está haciendo Boston. Boston también tiene diferentes retos que amenazan a sus comunidades, especialmente las personas más frágiles de la comunidad, las personas pobres, las personas que acaban de venir, las personas de la tercera edad, etc. So, nosotros queremos nada más que nos dé ideas de lo que está pasando. Quisiera antes reconocer los empleados de la colaborativa por su gran trabajo que siempre hacen, porque a veces nos convertimos en una compañía de movedores y los miembros. So I also, as I talk about sort of like the work that we've been doing, also have to acknowledge the staff of the Chelsea Collaborative, who at times we come dressed like this, and then we become a moving company. We have to put sneakers on and move a family from one, porch to another location, etc. So, a los empleados de la colaborativa, Jesse as the school committee and staff of the Chelsea Collaborative, welcome. My niece, Kelly Garcia, who's also a teacher at Excel Academy, who also serves as the school committee member in the city of Chelsea. Any other elected officials that I missed? Tom Ambrosino, hi city manager, buenos días, ¿cómo estás? So our city manager, Tom, and Juan Vega, que trabaja para la organización de Baker, no relationship to me, of course. So my cousin Juan Vega, who works for the Baker administration en el Departamento de Desarrollo y Vivienda. And my good friend and partner in crime, so I have 2 of those. One that is a real partner in crime, Detective Medina, who's the board president of the Chelsea Collaborative, and then Dini, who is the chief operating officer, and everyone else. So, entonces le voy a pedir a Norieli. Norieli, quickly, just to summarize it, give me an overview of Chelsea stuff that you know about the clients that you see in the court and the housing situation that you see.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Luis de Jesus. I've worked here for about 12 years now. Chelsea is also my hometown. Just to give you guys a little reference, this work in progress is a Chelsea map. It's a little scavenger hunt right now, honestly, because we haven't put up the street names yet. So if you get a chance, come look at the map, see where you live if you are one of our neighbors. Or if you're not from town, come look at some of the buildings and some of the stuff that Chelsea has. Here at the Chelsea Collaborative, as Gladys mentioned, we see several cases weekly. Our families have turned into survival mode. What does that mean for Chelsea? That means subleasing. That means we have bedrooms that our families are confined to with their children, adults, grandparents. That means we hear cases of harassment, and we need to partner with our police department and try to mediate. That means there's concerns of substance abuse in these buildings, right, in these units. We also get a lot of insight to what's going on and what are the effects of housing through our youth. Our youth tell us how sometimes they are couch surfing and are late to school, and we're mediating and talking to the schools and the teachers about how they're making lines in the morning in order to take a shower because there are many strangers in the household who are also subleasing, right? It's the situation that you find yourself in where you're not sure how many times you should be opening the refrigerator in fear of the other strangers who are subleasing in that apartment, thinking that you might be taking their food, right? And going to sleep hungry at night. I have parents who tell me, but I'm fortunate, Norialis, because I get to provide for my children a private unit, an actual apartment that we don't have to share with strangers. But that one sacrifice that they make is that their children don't get to see them before they go to school in the morning, or their children don't get to say hi when they come back after school, because they're working multiple jobs to keep that one decent single apartment for their kids. We're in a crisis. I'm sure that's not news for other communities as well. I'm sure that a lot of the stories relate to some of the families that you guys have in your neighborhoods, but we don't have time. The scenarios I just played for you guys, they happen on a daily basis, every single morning. This morning, some of our youth woke up and made a line to the bathroom. Or some of our parents wondered, I hope my child ate breakfast before school. I can go on and on about the stories we get at the Collaborative. As Gladys mentioned, we're the forefront, we're the moving company, we're the shoulder to cry on, we are the mediators, we're in the courts, Jasenia, we're working with our partners, GBLS, Mass Law Reform, but it's not enough. It's important that you are all working in teams and we're supporting one another, but we need tangible, long-term policy change. Our families need it now. I'm going to hand over the mic now to one of our members.
Yes, fine. Yeah.
And they are going to tell you firsthand what the experience has been for them with the housing crisis. Or if Jasenia wants to help sort of interpret, this is one of your cases.
We asked her this morning, I don't know if you know the elders, and they have like the tears to my heart, well, to the heart of the organization. This is Miss Paulina Jones. If you can all give her a round of applause. And this is her daughter Norma, who can take care of she's a tough cookie. What I'm going to share with you, we asked her this morning if it was okay to share, if she was going to speak, but her case, she's a housing resident, and she was going through an eviction. Mamá, ¿usted cuántos años que tiene? 92 years old. I asked that purposely. What a 92-year-old is going to do on the street, right? There's no housing. There is no shelter other than people want to put them in a nursing home. That's what we have found on a daily basis here in Chelsea. Elders like Miss Paulina struggling to pay the rent because the rent, although she's in a housing complex, her rent also increases. Every time a penny increase on her Social Security, her rent increases. The cost of living is not easy in Chelsea. Well, in the whole Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She came here crying, what am I gonna do? Her daughter, she was also like terrified. She cannot move her mom into her apartment either because then she's gonna be jeopardizing her housing. So, like my coworker mentioned, this is a crisis that we have on a daily basis. And later on, we're gonna have another scenario like Miss Paulina. We fought. We went to 3 court hearings, and the challenge was nobody wanted to represent. There was no legal advice. there was, other than the Greater Boston Legal Services, when they come here to the Know Your Rights, that we were able to get advice. We even bother Annette too, from MRI. What can we do to change this on the policies in the Commonwealth? Because a 92-year-old shouldn't be worried about where she's going to sleep tonight. Something with the teenagers that she described. For us, it's easy because we have a place to sleep. We have a place where we can call home. But then what's going to happen tomorrow? Are we going to be able to say the same thing? Are we going to be able to call the place home? Just give you that to think, because it's something that we need your support in Chelsea. This is what we see in Chelsea on a daily basis. And thank you, Tom, because I know we are always counting on you, and Gladys and Dini, because they always like so flexible with us, the staff. They're like, okay, girls, don't call me later when you don't have this and this list of things to do ready, because we also have priorities in the organization, but we have to deviate and become to the need of the community, because that's why we exist. That's why we are a community organization. So thank you so much for being here again.
Gracias, Jessica. Gracias. So we'll now, welcome to sit here. We have a chair for you here.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. She
yes.
asked for a special chair.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit there. I want a special chair.
Aquí al lado de Paulina. There's a couple of chairs here. Si quieren, Lee, there's a couple of chairs here. This is another board member, Lee Staples, from the Chelsea Collaborative. Okay, so now I'll introduce my dear friend, Tom. Any reactions, or you want to hear what, how do you want to do this?
Just here to hear
Okay, so perfect. Okay, so let's hear what our alcalde, nuestro querido alcalde, puede decir sobre la crisis que estamos confrontando y que ellos están haciendo en Boston para nosotros aprender. So we want to hear from Mayor Marty Walsh to see what they're doing in Boston and how we can learn and do best practice.
Let me just first of all thank Gladys and everyone at the Chelsea Collaborative. I met the Collaborative through Gene O'Flaherty. When Gene O'Flaherty was a state representative in 1997, we both got elected to the House of Representatives. And one of the first bills that we filed, Gene was the sponsor of it, I was the co-sponsor, was the driver's license bill. And that bill nearly passed. It was 1999. It was kind of a time before immigrants were labeled as bad people. For some reason, that happened after 2001. But we fought for a lot of different pieces of legislation. Gene with the Collaborative and me with different areas, Four Corners in Dorchester and other organizations. And we worked on MIRA and a whole bunch of different issues together. And I want to thank Gladys and everyone here doing this work for over 3 decades. Not necessarily Gladys, but for 3 decades. Thank you. To my friend Tom Ambrosino, the city manager, we work very closely together when it comes to housing and transportation issues, and certainly on immigrants and poor people. Because our cities, in some places, mirror each other. There are parts of Boston like Chelsea, and there are parts of Chelsea like Boston. And over the last bunch of years, there's been some change in Boston, and there's been some change in Chelsea. And as I was driving here this morning, I was seeing all the new buildings on Route 1. They've been here for a while, and I think about the struggles that we still have are still here. With poor people, with families, with senior citizens, with kids, with our immigrant population, our immigrant community. I want to thank all of you for being here today. Some folks on my team, we have, God bless you, we have Sheila Dillon, Chief of Housing in the City of Boston, with us. Emily Shea from our Age Strong Commission is with us today. Yusufi Valley from our new Director of Immigrant Advancement is here with us today. We have some other folks here as well, because the relationship between Chelsea and Boston is very, very close. And we need to continue to make sure that it's our people, our land is connected, our waterways are connected, our economies are connected. Boston and Chelsea rise and fall together. In both of our cities, unemployment is below 3%. If we would ever say that, we'd be kind of, what do you mean? Well, it's going to be under 3%, but it's under 3%. We are working to help get more people into good paying jobs with good benefits. And we have programs in the city of Boston as well as here that we're working on. Our school systems have struggled in the past, but our school systems are on a steady progress moving forward. The education funding bill is good. It's a good bill. It's a good bill for Boston, it's a good bill for Chelsea. It's a good bill for immigrants. It's a good bill for the kids in our district, meaning that there's more investment. And it's up to us now as cities and towns to make sure that investment is made properly. We both have high needs population students in our districts. Our kids face poverty. Our kids have language barriers. Our kids have disability challenges. I want to give a shout out, I don't know if they're not here this yet, but I thought they'd be coming this morning, to Sal and Danny for supporting the legislation to lift the cap on kids for family benefits. I want to thank them for that legislation. I also want to thank them for working very hard on the education funding bill as it moves forward. I'm a proud son of immigrants. My parents came from Ireland in the 50s. Like Gino Flaherty's parents came. They came here and they met here, and they settled and they got married. But when they came here, quite honestly, my mother came here at the age of 16 and a half to send money back home because she was the oldest of 7. My father left home at 15. He went to a different part of Ireland to do work in the fields. He picked potatoes. And then he went to England for 6 years. And then he came back home, and then came to America in the 50s. And they came here because my father was one of 13. And again, the kids that left home, they left home because, for 2 reasons. One, there was really no opportunity there. And 2, to send money back to support the family at home because they had nothing. Boston is an immigrant city. 28% of the residents of the 700,000 people in the city of Boston were born in another country. 28%. Compared to 45% in Chelsea. That's the last number I saw. The biggest growth in Boston since the 1980s is Latino immigrants. So when we think about our growth in Boston and we celebrate that growth, it's because of predominantly Latino immigrants that have come into the city of Boston. We are now a 20% Latino city, and that number is growing. Chelsea is one of the few majority Latino cities in the northeast of the United States of America at over 65% of the population. So I want to thank the Chelsea Collaborative for your leadership in and by the Latino community. This is a local group. Those of us that might be here today for the first time, this collaborative is a local group that has a national impact. Because oftentimes when there's something wrong, people will look to the collaborative, the Chelsea Collaborative, for guidance. Cities around America look to the Chelsea Collaborative for guidance. And oftentimes at the State House, when I was there and still, when there's a bill that's impacting immigrants or something negative, it's the collaborative that's always front and center. The collaborative is one of our key partners on the Greater Boston Immigrant Defense Fund. We launched it 2 years ago to make sure people have access to legal representation in deportation and other proceedings. We are wrapping up year 2. The funds will be launched year 3 in November at the We Are Boston Gala. We've also made investments on our city budget for the first time ever, putting money into the fund. The city never did that. I have to talk about the news that a lot of people were seeing this weekend in Boston with the relationship between the Boston Police Department and the federal government. Oh, yeah. We have a relationship, and that's an important relationship. That relationship is meant to make sure that serious criminals aren't preying on our communities. That relationship is meant to go after drug traffickers. That relationship is meant to go after sex traffickers. That relationship is meant to go after people committing serious crime. That relationship is not to be ICE agents. Boston Police Department are not ICE agents, and Boston Police Department will not be ICE agents. That's not their role. And we made a change this week in the office because it was, quite honestly, it was time to make a change. A lot of what you read about in the newspaper, the emails, that went back to 2013, 14, and 15, it went back away. But that doesn't matter. Because in 2014, when I became the mayor, and at the time, in 2014, it was a little different country, we were. Because we had an administration that would work with us. All that administration was difficult in the beginning. And then in 2016, when this president got elected, the attack on immigrants, and still continues today, I've been perfectly very clear on where I stand with the immigrant community. When the Muslim ban came down, I went over to Logan Airport. I went in the middle with folks supporting the Muslim community coming into the United States of America. I was escorted in the back by a customs agent to walk a woman out who was here learning in Tufts Medical. And I walked her to her car because she was afraid and she didn't know. And Boston's been very outspoken and vocal against what the federal government, ICE, threats have been. And we're going to continue to be. We have the Trust Act in Boston. The Trust Act has been in existence since 2014. We've strengthened it once, and we're in the process right now of strengthening it a second time. The fact that we have a document that I signed, supported by the City Council that I signed, that document is our guiding way of what all of our police agencies in the City of Boston need to follow. This isn't a suggestion. This isn't an opinion. This is the law. This is the law that I signed into law to make sure that the Boston Police Department, the Boston Housing Authority, the Boston School Police, our Public Health Police, all the different police that we have in the City of Boston follow that guideline. And I wanted to get that out today because over the last couple of days I've been somewhat taken back by this. To come back to a positive manner, a positive situation, the collaborative in the City of Chelsea are working with us in the 2020 census. We need to make sure that we count every vote, that we count every person. There are folks that won't come to the collaborative for whatever reason. There are folks that won't come to City Hall for whatever reason. There are folks that won't go to the Irish Immigration Center for whatever reason. We need to make sure as we collaborate together that we reach out to let people know that they count. That they might be undocumented, but they count. They might have a green card and feel that they're not wanted in this country, but they count and they are wanted. We need to make sure that we go out there and work hard because the impact of the 2020 census run deep for Chelsea, run deep for Boston in a whole bunch of different ways. I think potentially, depending on the population growth of Massachusetts, we potentially have an opportunity to look, maybe gain a congressional seat. The last 3 censuses we've lost 3. In the state legislature, Chelsea used to have 2 state representatives. You still kind of have 2 that are boarded. Getting another legislator or 2 in the Boston, Chelsea, greater Boston area would be important for all of us to have more representation at the State House. To have more senators at the State House working for us on our behalf collectively is what this is about. Grants and supports, and Tom will tell you firsthand the impacts of having a high count and the impacts of being able to access money to the City of Chelsea is really, really important. So it's an opportunity for us to continue to move forward. Gladys was at the kickoff. She spoke. She's continued one of our strong partners. I'll go through this quick, and I know you have some questions for me. We also have challenges in transportation and resilience. We're working on those issues collectively at the Metro Mayor's Coalition, and we're working to make sure that the investments by the state and the investments by the cities are there to make sure that we have a safe, resilient, effective way to be able to collectively go around our cities. But what's most important for people is the cost of housing. It's probably number 1, you heard it today already, a 92-year-old senior citizen being evicted potentially from her home. Where does she go? Where does a mother of 3 that has 3 jobs, where does that person go? Where do our teenagers go? There are building trades here in the room today from the Carpenters Union. There are building trades members being pushed out of the city of Boston, and they make good money because they can't afford to stay there because the costs are too high. We need to continue to work for low-income, working-class, middle-class seniors. We're going to continue this in Boston. This is our biggest issue. I said to the business leaders the other day, not having additional housing is hurting hurting your workforce's ability to grow. Developers and employers have to be part of the solution. The root cause is a historic housing shortage. Population grew, but homes didn't. It's not just a Boston and Chelsea issue, it's a Commonwealth of Massachusetts issue, quite honestly. So when I took office, we brought the stakeholders to the table. Sheila Dillon led the way with us. We turned 3 million square feet of city land into 500 home ownership opportunities for first-time home buyers, and over 1,100 rental units to the housing market. We increased our inclusionary development and linkage collections, which meant we sat developers down and said we want to increase our payments. We want you to increase your payments because we need to build more housing. We're making sure the building boom produces revenue that goes to affordable housing. We currently have a lot of home rule petitions at the State House to allow us to do more of these programs. One of those home rule petitions is something called right to counsel. If one of us, if I walked outside the front door today and committed a crime, and I was at Chelsea Court tomorrow morning, and I didn't have a lawyer, there's a lawyer there for me, that's the law. But if I'm 92 years old and I'm getting evicted because somebody's greedy and they want to make more money on their housing, and I have to go to court as a 92-year-old woman who English isn't her first language, but is a citizen, I have no recourse, I have no representation. I'm not going to win that case. So that's a piece of legislation that's at the State House that we're pushing really hard in the city of Boston, along with a whole host of other pieces of legislation that we're working. We're working on community planning and trans-oriented development in the city of Boston. We're working on accessory dwelling units. In 2015, I sold something called the Winthrop Square Garage. It was somewhat controversial in the city. It was a garage in the middle of the city that was abandoned and condemned. And I sold it, and people rallied around saying, I can't believe we're doing this. I don't know what we're going to do with it anyway. But we got $152 million for that garage. $28 million going into Boston Common to redo Boston Common for the people. $28 million going to Franklin Park. $25 million went into Old Colony Housing Development to do the next phase of the Old Colony Housing Development. $10 million of that money went into East Boston, Orient Heights, to do the next piece of Orient Heights. And we're continuing making increases of payments into our housing authority. Why? Because we don't have a federal partner. So if the federal government's going to turn their back on housing, we need to come up with the money, and we need to be creative on how we're going to do it. And that's what we're doing in the city, and we're working in the city. Like Chelsea, we passed the Community Preservation Act in 2016. Your state representative, state senator, Danny Ryan and Sal DiDomenico, increased the match this year to 44 cents on the dollar, which is great for all of us. Tom liked it, I like it, we all love it. We'll take another 66 cents if they want to put it up there, 66 cents if they want to put it up there, but we'll take the 44 for now. What does that do? That allows us to create more opportunities for more low-income housing. We're also using for the first time, we're also using the money from the CPA for first-time home ownership. We dedicated $3.8 million of CPA funding to low-interest mortgage payments for the first time. In Boston, in the last 5 years, just so you get a chance for what we did, what's happening. We created over 31,000 new homes in the city of Boston. 31,000 new homes. We have 27,000 in the pipeline. We are ahead of pace to meet our goal of 69,000 new homes by the year 2030. But rents remain high. We've stabilized it in some neighborhoods. But just as important, 6,000 of our new homes are affordable, subsidized. That's about 20%. In America, we're the #1 largest city in America for income-restricted housing. Think about that statement for a minute. Wow. We're the #1 city in the United States of America for income-restricted housing. But when you go to our communities and go to our organizations, you would never know that. Because there's so much need. There is so much need. Another big thing is Boston and Chelsea, what they have in common in Massachusetts. Only Boston, Chelsea, and Holyoke are over 90% subsidized housing in the housing stock. 3 cities and towns in Massachusetts have over 19% of subsidized housing. 3 cities and towns. Me and Tom sit at a table, a lot of people talk about building, they want to build subsidized housing. Well, let's do it. We'll help you. Because we're doing it here in our cities. But, you know, I could keep going on a whole bunch of different things. I want to kind of do some positive stuff. The last couple of years have been difficult in the United States of America. We've done a whole bunch of other stuff on housing too. So what we'd like to do is work with you on housing. I'm jumping over a bunch of housing things. But I want to talk real briefly about our immigrant community. Our immigrant community has built this country. Okay? Just want to be very clear. In the building trades, we have some immigrants here, but some of the building trade members, they forgot that their families that came in before them were actually immigrants that built churches and hospitals and highways and roads and bridges and train tracks, and they did all that. We have a very short memory about who immigrants are and what we are. The United States of America does not survive and is not prosperous without immigrants. It's because of immigrants, our success. The United States of America is successful because of immigrants. The immigrants have built America.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. We need to clap.
Has gone into politics. The immigrant community has run for office and got elected. The immigrant community has fought for the disadvantaged. The immigrant community has gone into labor. My uncle was a union business manager. He was born in a house, one of 13, with no shoes, walking to school 5 miles a day. He had a 2nd grade, 3rd grade education. He came to America and became the head of the 2nd largest laborers union in Massachusetts. He was an immigrant. We get down on this. We're letting Washington brainwash us. It's time for us to stop doing that because they're not being successful. The impact of the negativity out of Washington isn't working. We need to continue to rise up who we are. The folks in this room that came from another country, most of you came from a country, you came here because you needed to. We love you here in America because America is an immigrant country. The reason why countries, if you look at great empires over the time, the reason why they've crumbled is because they've looked inward. They didn't look outward, they looked inward. They built walls and they tried to kill off their enemies and they didn't work with people. That's not who we are as a country. That's not who we are as a state. And that's certainly not who we are as the city of Boston or city of Chelsea. So the reason why I'm saying this today is we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. But just like this 92-year-old woman here who's being evicted, we don't have to feel bad for her. She's been through more struggles in her life than anyone else in this room. And she'll get through that. Why? Because she has a fighting spirit inside of her. That's what makes us different. So I want to thank all of you in this room for your advocacy. There's some former elected officials here. There's some current elected officials here. There are some future elected officials here. I want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank you for what you do every day. I want to thank you for fighting the good fight. I want to thank you for sticking up for the people that live on these streets that don't have anyone to fight for them. And I want you to know that if you need a friend ever and a partner, the city of Boston is right with you on any fight, anything you need in the future. So thank you very much.
Qué bello empezar la mañana con estas palabras, en vez de mirar la televisión y ver lo que nuestro presidente va a estar haciendo hoy. So it's so beautiful to wake up, you know, and be here this morning, having breakfast, and be inspired by the words of our mayor, Marty Walsh, rather than turning the TV on and seeing what you know, the White House is doing today. So muchísimas gracias. Una vez más, un gran aplauso para nuestra. Es un placer tener colegas como él. So, le voy a pedir que cojamos 3 preguntas y si nos pasamos de la hora, para que él nos diga si ya está tarde. So, 3 questions. Preguntas para el alcalde de miembros de la comunidad. Preocupaciones, preguntas, cosas que quieren que le clarifique.
Mr. Mayor, welcome to Chelsea. Real quick, you mentioned some facts, fast facts. It is true, our community has done a lot to create affordable housing, passed the CPA. We've passed a revision of the inclusionary zone, which is 15% to include lower AMI as part of the rentals, not just 80%. But recently in the Boston Globe, we saw the problem that a parcel that borders Boston and Brookline, one side has a denser build-out of 35 units. Next door, near to each other, just 2 single families or something like that. You've identified the problem that I see, which is there are communities not pulling the weight. So how do large communities and small communities like Chelsea and Holyoke and those who are creating affordable housing, how do we put the pressure on our neighboring towns who are still under the 10%?
I think we speak in one voice. I think we put pressure on folks. I know Tom and myself were at a meeting where we were able to get the Metro Mayors to come up with a housing plan of 185,000 units of new housing by the year 2030. Obviously, most of those low-income housing units will be subsidized and probably built here. So we have to keep pushing the governor's housing choice bill. We can't let right now, the way the housing choice bill is going, is the Senate doesn't want to pass it as it is. They want to put a lot of other things in the bill, which we'd all like. The House doesn't want to do that, and the House might pass housing choice. And I've been up there long enough. How about we just pass housing choice? How about we just agree to passing housing choice? And then we will fight it out on these other little things and try and get some of our other stuff done. But if we get caught up in the politics of the Senate won't pass it unless they get all these other things, well, the House is never going to pass that. So let's be quite honest and try and get housing choice, number 1. Number 2, we have a project right now, we're Suffolk Downs. We're working on the Suffolk Downs project. It's going to be, I don't know what the number is, how many units of housing?
On our side, 7,000, and there's Revere 1,000.
7,000 units of housing on our side, 1,000 units of housing on the other side. On our side, unofficially, we're going to hopefully get to 20% affordable housing. On the Revere side, it's at 0. That doesn't make any sense. We're right next to the next each other, like literally the next each other. So we have to continue to fight, push them.
Gracias. Espera un momento. So tengo 2 o 3 miembros de la comunidad. Tom, then Flor, then Evangelina, ¿sí? Y then Kelly. Okay.
I'll be fast with the answer.
This is really just a comment. I just wanted to say how happy I am to have such a collaborative partner in Mayor Walsh. He's being modest as to how much he has pushed for all of the things that are so important to this organization, none more so than in the housing equity realm, where he has been the lead of Metro Mayors in pushing other communities in that group to do more in the affordable housing realm. He was a staunch advocate of expansion of the housing code, which we got, and he's now working very hard on 2 other housing issues, the right to counsel and eviction record sealing that I know we're all hoping will get passed in this session. So I just want to say to the mayor, thank you for being such a great partner with the city of Chelsea.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
¿Cómo podemos contar con usted para, si nos puede ayudar, de poder organizarnos y poder tener un control de renta que tanto necesitamos en Chelsea?
So how can you help us with this idea of rent control as for a community as Chelsea?
Rent control, I think the jury's out on rent control. That's what
So él cree que controlar la renta, ya eso se está más o menos, se está trabajando, o la idea está ahí un poquito implantada.
I think in a lot of communities, rent control is a word that scares a lot of people.
El control de renta para muchas comunidades le da pánico o asusta a mucha gente.
But on the other side,
Pero en el otro lado,
I think we have to take a look at what does rent control mean in 2019.
¿Qué es lo que en el otro lado queremos ver qué es lo que quiere decir control de renta en el 2019?
California passed something interesting,
California, el estado de California pasó algo muy interesante,
where the rents are able to go up a small amount.
donde las rentas podían subir un poquito nada más.
And there's some other things in the bill that I think that we have to look at.
Y hay otras cosas en esa ley que tenemos que mirar.
My advice is,
Mi consejo es,
rent control is something that a lot of people understand,
el control de renta es algo que mucha gente entiende,
but what it really comes down to is community stabilization.
pero verdaderamente lo que quiere decir es establecer las comunidades.
How do we stabilize rents in a community?
¿Cómo establecemos las rentas o los altos precios en las comunidades?
Not just by building housing
No tan solo creando vivienda
or making investments.
o creando inversiones.
How can we get there where we can allow a person who owns a building to make an investment or make a profit,
¿Cómo podemos permitir que la persona que hace un edificio haga dinero,
but not push everyone out of the community?
pero que no lo saque completamente de la ciudad?
I don't know the answer to that right now,
Todavía no tengo la contesta para eso ahora mismo,
but Sheila Dillon's working on it.
pero la persona que está trabajando en vivienda está
And
trabajando en eso.
she'll probably come to me in a couple weeks and say, this is what we're doing.
Y probablemente le va a decir a él, esto es lo que estamos haciendo en referencia a control de renta.
Let me just, real quickly on rent control. Rent control has to be a statewide ballot initiative.
Él piensa que el control de renta tiene que ser algo que lo haga el estado entero,
And if we don't define it correctly,
y si no lo definimos correctamente,
it's gonna frighten people
va a asustar a la gente
where they're gonna vote it down.
y van a votar en contra.
So I think we have to think about how do we come up with more issues around stabilization. Am I right in that?
So, por eso es que tenemos,
Yeah.
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 So, por eso es que tenemos que hablar, buscar la forma de hablar sin que la gente se asuste y hacer un poquito más de investigación.
Now to follow up on my unclear answer,
Y aunque él no te dio una clara contestación y va a tratar de buscar otra forma,
I actually filed a bill
él ahora mismo propuso una ley
for all intention will bring rent control for anyone over 35 years old.
Por toda la intención. Esto viene a tratar de que el control de renta no pase más de las personas de 75 años. ¿Algo más? ¿Está bien? Gracias.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mi pregunta es,
My question is,
este es uno de los estados, Massachusetts, que es de los mejores en Estados Unidos. He oído que Boston tiene una calidad de salud excelente.
so this is, she has heard that this is one of the most, the best states to live in, and the quality of health care is very good.
Por ello, muchas personas emigran para esta ciudad de Boston.
I'm sorry, I'm translating in Spanish. For that reason, many people move to the state of Massachusetts.
Pero ¿por qué aquí en Boston, en Chelsea, no hay más accesibilidad a las personas para una renta o que puedan acceder a un shelter?
Okay, so why is it that if it's so progressive in sort of like housing and other health developments and stuff, why for housing is such a hard time? And why Chelsea and Boston do not have that much access to shelters or to places where people can afford it once they come in?
I think I don't know what other cities and other states have, but I would say we probably have the strongest shelter system in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Él cree que en el estado de Massachusetts tiene un proyecto de vivienda para personas que no tienen donde vivir, temporaria, bastante fuerte en este estado.
And it's not at the quality that I think it should be.
No está todavía en la calidad que él cree que debe de estar.
The issue we have in Boston, particularly in Boston with housing, is that we're a small city geographically.
El problema que tenemos es que somos una ciudad geográficamente pequeña
And we're an expensive city
y somos sumamente cara
because of all the businesses we have
porque todos los negocios que tenemos
and the companies that are moving into our city.
y las compañías que se están mudando a nuestra ciudad.
So building's expensive.
So, edificios son caros
And the biggest cost right now is probably land.
y el costo más alto es el terreno
And also materials.
y materiales.
Everyone focuses on the labor side, but they don't focus on the material side.
todo el mundo se enfoca en la mano de obra, pero no se enfocan en los materiales y el costo que está con eso.
So I think that that's some of the reason why we are where we are today.
Y él cree que por eso es que estamos donde estamos hoy.
But I think it's very important for Boston and Chelsea and other cities and towns
Pero nosotros creemos que es importantísimo para Chelsea y Boston y otras ciudades,
as they plan out their city for the future
cuando planifican para sus ciudades del futuro,
and new development,
en nuevos desarrollos,
that there's a housing plan in that,
que hay un plan de vivienda en eso
and that there's low-income housing in that,
y que hay costo de vivienda para personas de bajos ingresos en ese plan.
and I think one of the areas that we seem to be missing right now is middle-class housing.
Y es una de las cosas que nosotros nos olvidamos que no está ahí en estos planes, es vivienda para las personas de la clase media.
Because a lot of people that come to this country from another place,
Porque mucha de la gente que viene aquí de otros sitios,
when they come here, they're poor.
cuando vienen aquí son pobres,
They get 2 and 3 jobs.
buscan 2 o 3 trabajos,
They move their way up into the middle class.
se mudan un poquito hacia la clase media,
They buy a home,
compran una casa
and sometimes they lose that home
y muchas veces pierden esa casa
because they were taken advantage of,
porque fueron cogidos de ventaja,
whether it was the interest rates,
quizás porque los intereses de la vivienda, gracias,
or people coming in. That's happening in Chelsea,
o las personas que vienen nuevas a la ciudad de Chelsea.
where people make $200,000 a year.
Y las personas tan solo hacen, estas personas que están llegando a Chelsea hacen 200,000 al año,
They give you an incredible offer for your house.
te dan una oferta increíble por la casa,
You sell the house,
tú vendes la casa
and if you own a 3-family,
y si eres dueño de 3 familias,
the family that sold the house makes out okay,
la familia que vendió la casa hace más o menos,
but the other 2 families get evicted.
pero las 2 otras personas los botan del hogar.
So we do have to build more, I think, more middle-class housing as well.
Por eso es que él cree que tenemos que hacer más vivienda para la clase media, para que eso no suceda. Y tú te vas a traducir para ti mismo.
Councilor.
Hi, good morning. As my aunt mentioned, I'm Kelly Garcia. I'm a high school teacher and a school committee member here in Chelsea, along with Jasenia. Our concern, and to build off of the community, I'm sorry, I forgot her name. Evangelina's comment, a lot of our students are left homeless, and so what can we do? What is within our local locus of control to support our students who are not Boston residents but need a shelter?
Yeah. I think 2 things. One is we started a program last year in Boston. We invested some money. We have 4,500 plus homeless families, kids in our district, and we started a program to help those young people, connect them to housing, families to housing. So that's a big issue in Boston.
So, for example, just to add into that, Evangelina's, for example, dilemma. Evangelina, voy a hablar un poquito del dilema que tuvimos contigo.
Yeah.
So Evangelina comes in, 2 children. She has a 3-year-old. Era una de 3 y una de 4.
Yeah.
She brings her bags. She gets evicted with her bags and her kids in the office probably 2 weeks ago. We tried finding shelters. Both of her kids are undocumented. We were not able to help her at all. We just found her right now in a room in a location that she may be displaced 3 months from now. And the problem with our community members is that we don't have a shelter. When we call Boston shelters, they basically tell us there may be no room, and also if they find out that they're undocumented, even a family of 3 like her, we're not able to help her.
So we're gonna connect you to Sheila
So ella va a conectarte con Sheila.
and work on that. The second thing is on youth homelessness, just so you'll know. The one thing, we got a grant from the federal government. I don't know how we got it. We got a $5 million grant. And we're working with, we applied, but we got it. But we got it. I thought we get it. Bridge Over Troubled Waters is working on a plan right now, so you should get tied into that with us as well, on having a plan. These are for high schoolers that become homeless, that don't necessarily always have a family. So we'll work with you on that.
I'm sorry, even if they're not Boston residents?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a connection.
Close enough.
Él dice Acuérdate que estamos bastante cerca de Boston, que nos trata de ver cómo nos ponemos. Okay. And that is the report. It's awesome. So that's exciting. Y este es un hombre de la palabra. Él siempre nos da la palabra y siempre está ahí para nosotros. Okay, Sariti.
So with housing accessibility, affordability is such a challenge in the Commonwealth, like what is Boston doing differently from other cities? I mean, all of my family live in Boston, and we've seen firsthand what the challenges are around housing accessibility and affordability. So what is it that you're doing differently? Because I mean, there's still people that there's a ton of homelessness in Boston. People that can't afford housing, and then the waiting list is like,
Let
I
me
mean,
just, a
3
lot
to
of,
5 years.
a lot of our waiting list is not Boston people. A lot of our homelessness in the street is not Boston people. And people come to our city for services, and we try to help anyone. We're not gonna turn them away. I think it's gonna take leadership. We don't have a federal housing partner right now. We don't have federal money coming into our housing authority. So what we're doing in the city of Boston is we invested for the first time ever, not the first time ever, we invested in a construction project for the first time ever in one of our housing developments in Charlestown. We made a $20 million investment to build a building. We've never had to do that before. That's always been the federal government. We're making investments to make sure the bottom line of our housing authority. So when you think about housing, this is our public housing. And I think it's going to take leadership. And it's not popular. Nobody wants construction. Nobody wants development. If you go to a community meeting, I'm assuming it's the same thing here in Chelsea. You go into a neighborhood group, Marvin, you know, if we go into a community meeting, somebody wants to build 9 units of housing. It's like you think they're going to build the Empire State Building in the backyard. We don't want it. We don't want it. We need to build housing. We need to build housing. And we can't say no. We need to build housing. And if we don't build housing, then the issues on the streets are going to get worse. We also need the banks to free up some money. The banks aren't lending money the way they should. I know you work for a bank.
Well, that went on to my next question.
They need to start freeing up some money.
Yeah, well, that would go to our next question. What can business, the members of the business community, financial institution do, or, you know, to help that process? Because, I mean, there's the challenge of housing affordability and accessibility and availability, but there's also people that are trying to buy homes. And, I mean, if I remember some I saw correctly about, like, homes in Massachusetts start at $400,000. Who can afford $400,000?
Because there's no supply. The supply's not there. It's supply and demand. If the supply is not there, and there are more people that have the means to be able to buy these housing, they're going to push people out. That's what's happening in Dorchester. I grew up in Dorchester. I still live there. On the street I grew up on, it's all 3 deckers, 3 families. The first one went for $1.2 million last year.
And lastly,
well, let me finish. I'm not done.
Okay.
And I think we also need to work collectively together, and not. I think we need to stop pointing fingers at each other and work collectively together to increase it. It's easy to get. Listen, I was a state rep. I could go to a rally. I could get everyone fired up. I could say, you know, all the right things. So all the right things. Everyone's all fired up. Well, that's great. You can do that. Now stand up and actually make it happen. I mean, as a mayor, I can go to a rally. I can stand with the Chelsea Collaborative and talk how bad Donald Trump is and how wrong the atrocities are and no housing. But if I'm not doing the work myself as mayor and we're not doing it as a city, then I'm just, it's all words.
That's true.
And I think more elected officials need to stop talking and step up and help us with this problem.
And I think if there's no any other members of the Chelsea Collaborative membership, residents or something, then we'll wrap it up. ¿Está bien?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
So
okay.
This may be a federal issue or something that has to be more with federal government, but for those people living in affordable housing, subsidized housing, that want to transition to home ownership, I think that the way that the system is set up, they can't open an account with us because they can't save money, because then if the housing finds out, then their rent is going to increase. So that's what I'm thinking. So that's, I mean,
yeah, we started a program when I ran the building trades in 2011. I started a program called Building Pathways, which is a pre-apprentice program. It came out of the housing authority's project labor agreement of retrofitting the housing units. And we were able to get people into the building trades, people of color into the building trades that otherwise didn't have opportunities to get in. And a lot of them lived on a lease with their parents or lived on a lease themselves. And that was one of the issues we had to struggle with is, as you start to go through apprentice, in a couple of years, you're going to become a journey person. When you become a journey person, you're going to start making money. And that was a federal, but Billy McGonigal, I think he worked with some waivers at the time to give people the opportunity to stay in the housing authority. But it really, the system doesn't make sense. And that has to be, and again, that comes with presidential elections coming up right now, and we have to start thinking about that. Some of it changed under President Clinton. Some good, some bad in public housing, but we really haven't had a champion in public housing. Julian Castro was a champion when he was director of HUD, but we need it. That's an important appointment. Whoever wins appoints the director of HUD, that they understand the challenge that people have and poor people have. HUD secretary can make a big impact there. We have Ben Carson now who's a brain surgeon, who doesn't really. Although I gotta be fair where fair is there. The local Boston office has been pretty good to work. We've had some good success with them. But again, I think it goes back to politics. It's not about the individual who we elect as president. It's about the decisions they make as president. That's key.
How about with issues of climate change? I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's just
it's okay.
I feel like that really affects immigrant communities, people that are the elderly community, children, and immigrants in general. So how would we face the transportation problem if something came about in that way? How would you, the city of Boston, help with transportation?
We're doing it now. So we're working collectively, Tom and myself and about 15 other mayors on a regional transportation plan. Climate resilience is part of that. Climate change is part of that. We just met with the Senate President and the Speaker. We're meeting with the Governor. We met with the Governor too, actually. So we're looking at what happens if a natural disaster event happens, number one. But number two, we're also talking about, is there a way for us to be prepared for an inevitable storm that doesn't impact the city the way that it impacted New York and other places?
Yeah, because I'm worried that MBTA towers wouldn't be, it'd probably have shut down or something, and
No, but we are working, and I think that there's a in Boston. I can speak for Boston. We have something called Resilient Boston Harbor, which is going to be a plan that we're going to be building on our waterfront to have resiliency as sea level rises. It won't come in and affect the community. Chelsea's next door. We've had some conversations with Chelsea, with Tom's, the environment folks, and maybe extending the plan through Chelsea. You've already done some of it here, building on the waterfront. They've actually done some resilient projects on the waterfront when some of the apartments went down there and some of the other stuff. So they've done some already, and we have more work to do on that. So it's top of the list for us.
Mayor, tomorrow your Chief Martinez is going to be testifying for the hearing on the climate refugee bill.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. ¿Algo más? No.
She actually did the question I wanted to ask.
Okay.
About
Okay.
California and Redford also. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Última pregunta, Mayra.
I just want to say thank you so much for supporting the budget for schools. It's been very helpful because we were very bad in Chelsea with the schools. 33 kids with only one teacher, especially with kids that has a special needs mix. So I really thank you so much, and I hope their government signed that.
We'll make them.
Yeah. But thank you so much.
He will. I think he's gonna. We've had good conversations with the governor and some stuff. I think when the final bill is done, there's going to be some differences. I'm not sure if he's going to veto anything, but we're certainly going to advocate. The bill that was passed through the House and the Senate, I like it.
Yeah, I really.
Obviously, we could say there's always going to be more, but I'm not going to be greedy. It's a pretty good bill, and we'll make sure we'll work with the state and the governor to try and convince them why it's important for us in Boston, Chelsea, and other places.
Thank you so much.
Gracias. Gracias. Thank you. So, gracias a todos. Gracias a ustedes.
Thank you.